The Pokémon anime gave us unforgettable faces like Ash, Misty, Brock, and Team Rocket. But hidden in its long history are characters who appeared once, made a huge impact, and then vanished without a trace. So, what really happened to these forgotten faces of Pokémon, and why did they disappear as quickly as they arrived? Melanie's story wasn't about battles or proving strength. It was about heart. In the Hidden Village episode, she was introduced as the caretaker of abandoned and injured Pokémon. While Ash and his friends were busy chasing badges and traveling toward the League, Melanie quietly built a safe haven where no Pokémon was left behind. Her gentle nature stood out immediately. And it wasn't just the characters on screen who were touched. Audiences connected with her message of kindness and responsibility. She represented the softer side of the Pokémon world, reminding everyone that not every hero has to fight in a stadium to make a difference. What's surprising is that Melanie was never revisited again. For someone who made such a big impression, her character seemed like it had the potential for much more. She could have been brought back as a mentor figure, or even as someone running a Pokémon Center or Sanctuary later in the series. Instead, she remained one of those one-time characters who slipped into the background of the show's long history. Still, her episode was one of those early lessons that shaped Ash's journey. Melanie's kindness was a sharp contrast to trainers like AJ, showing young viewers that strength isn't only measured in wins and losses. By caring for Pokémon that others abandoned, she embodied the idea of true friendship and responsibility. Many fans believe she deserved more recognition because she showed a side of the Pokémon world rarely seen again in such a pure way. Though she didn't battle, her impact was emotional and unforgettable, proving that some of the most meaningful characters don't need a spotlight. They leave their mark in quieter, lasting ways. When Pokémon fans think back to the earliest days of the Indigo League, AJ is one of those characters who instantly comes to mind. He wasn't a recurring rival like Gary Oak, but he made such a strong impression that fans still talk about him decades later. AJ owned a training camp where he pushed his Pokémon harder than most trainers ever dared. His star partner was Sandshrew, and together they showed Ash that discipline and hard work could build strength that no shortcut could ever replace. What made AJ stand out was that he wasn't flashy or interested in fame. He was a boy with a dream, promising that one day he would challenge the Pokémon League with his battle-hardened team. That promise stuck with viewers because the show never followed up on it. AJ disappeared after his debut episode, and fans were left wondering if he ever made it to the league, or even became a gym leader, as he once hinted. In many ways, AJ's story represented a theme Pokémon loved to show in its early days, that every trainer has a unique way of connecting with their Pokémon. While Ash focused on friendship and bonds, AJ focused on discipline, and neither was truly wrong. To this day, AJ's Sandshrew is remembered for battling with incredible endurance, even resisting water attacks, which was almost unheard of at the time. Many fans have imagined what his career might have looked like if the anime had revisited him, maybe even facing Ash in a tournament down the road. AJ was a one-time character, but he embodied the spirit of determination, and his absence from future arcs left viewers with a question that still lingers. Did he ever keep his promise and reach the league stage? Giselle was one of those characters who could have easily become a long-term rival for Ash. Yet she appeared only once, and then vanished. She was introduced during the Pokémon Tech episode in the Indigo League, where Ash and his friends encountered a unique school designed to train future Pokémon trainers through simulations and theory instead of traditional battles. Giselle was the standout student there, confident, brilliant, and with a touch of arrogance that made her unforgettable. She impressed everyone with her beauty and intelligence, but it was her battle with Misty that truly showed her skill. Giselle's Cubone gave Misty a tough time, and for a moment it looked like Giselle was on a whole different level compared to Ash's group. What made Giselle fascinating was the way she challenged the ideals of Pokémon training. She represented a completely different path, one that relied on knowledge and academics rather than traveling the world and earning badges. For kids watching back then, it was eye-opening. Pokémon Tech wasn't just a filler concept. It suggested that the Pokémon world had multiple routes to success. Giselle herself was written with layers. She wasn't just a mean girl. By the end of the episode, she softened and even admitted that practical experience mattered just as much as study, which was a big moment of growth. And yet, after this strong introduction, Giselle was never seen again. Fans often wonder what became of her. Did she continue her studies and become a top Pokémon researcher? Or did she decide to step into the real world and test herself as a traveling trainer? Many believe she had the potential to appear in later seasons, maybe even as a gym leader or Elite Four member. Giselle was more than a one-time character. She was a glimpse into the bigger possibilities of the Pokémon world, and her disappearance left fans with a mix of curiosity and disappointment. Duplica is one of those one-time characters who managed to steal the spotlight instantly. She appeared in the Indigo League arc with her quirky personality and, of course, her unforgettable partner, Ditto. The entire episode revolved around Ditto's unusual flaw. It could perfectly copy any Pokémon's body, but always kept the same goofy face. This problem created both comedy and heart, because Ditto desperately wanted to be accepted, while Duplica stood by its side with unwavering support. The way she encouraged Ditto, despite its struggles, made her stand out as more than just a performer. She showed how a trainer's patience and love could help a Pokémon grow, even when others doubted them. The battle between Ditto and Ash's Pokémon was both fun and meaningful. It wasn't just about who was stronger, but about learning that imperfections didn't define worth. By the end, Ditto managed to overcome its flaw, and Duplica left viewers with a lesson in acceptance that stuck long after the episode ended. Her personality, funny, dramatic, and full of energy, also made her instantly likable, and many fans thought she was destined to become a recurring character. But, like many of Pokémon's most interesting side characters, Duplica only appeared briefly before fading from the story. She did make a rare return in Johto, which was a pleasant surprise, but even then, she wasn't given the spotlight she deserved. Fans have often wished she would come back in later generations, especially since Ditto remains one of the most beloved and mysterious Pokémon in the franchise. Duplica represented creativity and resilience, and her stage performer vibe added a different flavor to the show. Even though she was only a minor character, her episode continues to be remembered as one of the most charming moments of the early Pokémon anime. In the early days of the Pokémon anime, the writers often introduced trainers who showed up for a single episode, challenged Ash's beliefs, and then disappeared forever. These characters weren't meant to stick around like Gary or Paul, but they played an important role in shaping Ash's journey. They acted almost like mirrors, forcing him to see that his way of training wasn't the only path to success. AJ was one of the strongest examples of this, but there were several others sprinkled throughout the Indigo League who carried the same rival-for-a-day energy. These trainers usually came with a bold attitude and a clear style that clashed with Ash's methods. Some were obsessed with strict discipline, others relied on unconventional strategies, and a few even mocked Ash for being inexperienced. While they weren't villains, they often had a sharp edge that made them seem intimidating. The point of their episodes was always the same: to push Ash to grow and prove that his bond with Pikachu and his other Pokémon mattered more than raw power or fancy techniques. What made these one-time rivals so memorable is how much they added to the world building. They reminded fans that the Pokémon world was huge, full of trainers with different philosophies, and Ash wasn't the only kid out there chasing dreams. Even though we never saw them again, their presence showed viewers that every encounter could leave a lesson behind. Fans often debate what happened to these rival-style characters. Did they continue on their journeys and eventually fade into the crowd of thousands of trainers? Or did some of them become gym leaders, tournament challengers, or even champions in their own right? We'll probably never know, but their stories underline one of the most important truths of Pokémon. Even the people who appear in your life briefly can have a lasting impact on who you become. Casey was one of those characters who burst onto the screen with so much energy that it was impossible to forget her. She showed up in the Johto region and immediately stood out because of her obsession with Electabuzz and her love of baseball. Dressed in her team colors, carrying the pride of a sports fan, she embodied the spirit of someone who wears their heart on their sleeve. Casey was loud, passionate, and determined, and she made a big impression on Ash and his friends from the very start. Her devotion to Electabuzz wasn't just a casual interest. It was like cheering for a lifelong sports team, complete with chants, cheers, and an almost comical level of enthusiasm. What made Casey so interesting was how different she felt compared to other one-time trainers. She wasn't chasing glory or bragging about her strength. Instead, she brought her personality and fandom into her training style, blending her love for sports with her love for Pokémon. That mix of human quirks with Pokémon battles made her one of the more relatable and fun side characters. Her team spirit and determination made fans root for her, even when she was on the losing side. Although Casey had the potential to become a recurring rival for Ash, the anime didn't develop her beyond a few episodes. After her initial burst of energy, she faded into the background, only appearing briefly before being forgotten completely. For fans, that was a disappointment because Casey's mix of humor, heart, and passion could have made her a strong, recurring presence in the series. Even though she didn't stick around, Casey's story showed how personal passions, whether it's baseball, music, or anything else, can shape the way people connect with their Pokémon. She may have been short-lived, but she left a lasting smile on those who met her. Todd Snap was one of the most unique one-time characters in the Pokémon anime, because unlike most of Ash's short-lived companions, he wasn't a trainer chasing badges or glory. Instead, Todd had a camera slung over his shoulder and a passion for capturing Pokémon in their natural state. He wasn't out to battle or catch them. He wanted to preserve their beauty through photography. This made him instantly stand out, and fans quickly connected him to the Pokémon Snap video game, which was released around the same time. For many viewers, he was the first reminder that not everyone in the Pokémon world had to be a battler to be important. Todd traveled with Ash and his friends for a short time, snapping photos along the way, but his approach to Pokémon was refreshing. He respected them, waited patiently for the right moment, and avoided disrupting their lives for the sake of a picture. That attitude made a big impression on fans, showing that Pokémon was more than just about gyms and tournaments. It was also about appreciating these creatures in their own environments. Unfortunately, Todd didn't remain a major figure in the anime. After a handful of episodes, he quietly disappeared, with only occasional mentions in fan conversations or nostalgic callbacks. His connection to the video game probably explains why he wasn't expanded upon further, but many fans still argue he deserved more screen time. Imagine if Todd had returned in later seasons, photographing legendary Pokémon, or even documenting Ash's tournament victories. It would have been a perfect tie-in to the broader Pokémon world. Even though he faded from the spotlight, Todd remains a fan favorite because he reminded everyone that the Pokémon world isn't just about battles. It's also about curiosity, creativity, and seeing the magic of Pokémon from a different lens, literally. The Orange Islands arc was one of the most unusual parts of the Pokémon anime. Unlike Kanto, Johto, or later regions, it wasn't directly tied to the video games. It was an original storyline created just for the show. That gave the writers freedom to introduce new characters who felt fresh and exciting, but sadly, most of them ended up as one-time wonders. Trainers, gym leaders, and quirky locals like Danny from Naval Island or Sissy from Mycan Island each had their moment to shine. But after Ash completed his Orange League challenge, they were left behind and never revisited. What made the Orange Islands crew so memorable was how different they felt compared to the usual gym leaders. Instead of standard battles, their challenges often mixed creativity with skill, like Danny's icy mountain climb or Sissy's unique water-based contests. These moments showed that Pokémon training could be more than battling in an arena. They added color and personality to the series, and many fans still look back on that arc as a refreshing change of pace. The dynamic was lighter, more tropical, and filled with adventures that gave a different side of Ash's journey. But once Johto began, the Orange Islands faded into history. None of the characters returned, not even Tracy's old friends. And for years, fans debated whether the anime would ever revisit that region. The fact that it hasn't makes those characters feel almost like legends, important for one season and then gone forever. Still, their impact was real. They gave Ash confidence, pushed him in new ways, and showed audiences that Pokémon could explore stories beyond the games. The Orange Islands crew may have been left behind, but their uniqueness makes them unforgettable for fans who grew up during that era. So, what are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments below.